right, welcome back to the 2025 Borealis Psychedelic Science Summit in Stockholm. My name is Yoshi and I'm joined now by Dr. Lowan Stewart. Welcome, Lowan.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Excellent.
Day 2.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
You got the early time slot, 9 in the morning, day 2. It's not the most desirable time slot, I imagine. But
it's perfect for me. I've had a cup of coffee.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm happy. I'm happy you're here.
So, yeah.
How did you enjoy day 1 of the conference?
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
I was at the first one, which was wonderful, and it's great to be back here and see a lot of old faces and a lot of new faces.
Awesome. First one was in 2018, right?
Yeah.
Also here in Stockholm, right?
Yeah.
All right. Tell me a little bit about your background and how you got to working in the psychedelic field.
Yeah, so I'm an American emergency specialist. I've been a specialist since 2003. I started my career, or prior to that, I was interested in neuroscience and the evolution of emotions. I studied laughter.
Oh, wow.
In primates. I tickled chimpanzees
No way.
As my thesis. And so I've always been interested in the brain and where we come from and how we work. And
yeah.
But then went into a career as an emergency physician. And after about 15 years, I got this, in emergency medicine, I always thought the best thing you could do is save somebody's life as a doctor. Kind of seems like that makes sense, but what happens is somebody comes in, their heart stops, you restart it, and they go home, and that's good. But if you have a shitty life and your heart stops and it starts back up, you still have a shitty life.
Yeah.
And so what a lot of medicine is focused on is increasing the duration of people's lives, not the quality of our lives.
Right.
And about a decade ago, I started thinking about ways that I could shift to work on that, increase the quality of our life, the meaning in our lives, wellness, happiness, because ultimately nobody really cares how long you live. You just want to, I'd rather live happily till I'm 60 than unhappily till I'm 90. So I did a master's in public health and then started focusing on, what is the biggest global burden of suffering, and it's actually mental health disorders. And in terms of years lost to disability, to loss of quality in our lives, it's mental health disorders and depression,
right,
which is the leading cause of that. And so started looking into it and reading about the psychedelics, new ways to approach mental health disorders. And as an emergency physician, you work with lots of medicines, anesthetics, including ketamine, and we also do emergency psychiatry. So in the U.S., when ketamine for mental health disorders started, it was often emergency physicians who got in there first, having that expertise in both of those fields.
Right.
And because this other I got interested in the other psychedelics, we started doing research in Norway on started with psilocybin and MDMA. But that's for most of the world research. It's not accessible to people. But ketamine is a approved drug that's been accessible since the 1970s, and it's a powerful psychedelic, and it seems to have very similar effects and both efficacy for a lot of the same indications and a lot of the similar mechanisms as well.
In emergency situations, is it used for pain relief or?
Yeah, so for anesthesia, to knock somebody out for surgery, or at small doses for pain. Yeah.
Got it.
So I opened a clinic in the U.S. in 2016, using ketamine to treat mental health disorders, and then brought the treatment to Norway in 2018, and simultaneously trying to implement it into the public health system, and continuing research on the side with other psychedelics that still, that aren't yet approved to actually help people right now,
right?
Except for research studies. And so I started a clinic in Norway called Axon Clinic, and then we opened a public, the first public ketamine unit south of Oslo in 2020. So we've been going there for 5 years, and treated almost 500 people there in the public unit, trained other public units. And just over the summer, a report came from the Medicines Agency in Norway that we had requested, that reviewed the treatment, and they said it's basically just as effective as the best thing we have in psychiatry, which is electroshock. And it works just as good, costs half as much, people prefer it, and it has less side effects. So just last month, Norway became the first country in the world to implement generic, off-label, off-patent generic racemic ketamine for the treatment of severe depression, and reimburse it on a national level in the public health system.
In which way does ketamine help with depression? Like, what is the mechanism?
It's a little complex. There's sort of 3 levels. There's a large overlap with the classic psychedelics, and actually with MDMA a little bit in terms of mechanisms, and then there's some that are very specific. It's an NMDA receptor antagonist, so it's a different start input in terms of the neuroreceptors, neurotransmitters and receptors, but the downstream cascade effects are very similar. So you have neuroplasticity, stimulating new growth of dendrites and synapses in the brain, which is replenishing the health of a brain that's suffering from a chronic stress state. So that's applicable to affective disorders, anxiety disorders, addiction. Any state of stress that the brain is in suffers with sort of atrophy of decreased neuroplasticity. Right. So that's one at the brain cell level, and then at the level of electrical networks in the brain, there's normalization of dysfunctional networks, and very similar to the classics, like increased function in your prefrontal cortex, your rational executive function, dampening down dysfunction in the amygdala, the sort of fear, being on guard all the time, unease, anxiety, disruption of the default mode network, which is this sort of rumination, thinking about the future and the past and not being in the present moment. And a unique mechanism that ketamine has that the others don't, as far as I know, is it disrupts what's called the negative reward network, the punishment center of your brain. Right. Which is the opposite of the positive. It sends out negative messages and decreases dopamine and serotonin in certain centers. And so that's kind of like resetting the thermostat in your brain. Like instead of being set really cold, you just readjust it to room temperature. Right. And that's something that happens rapidly with ketamine. And maybe a big part of that, the rapid antidepressant effect that many people have, like within hours or days of a treatment, as opposed to all other antidepressants that take weeks to months to work, or psychotherapy, which takes weeks to months to work. Yeah. Is
there a reason why ketamine is so ahead? So many countries are so much ahead in terms of ketamine use compared to psilocybin and MDMA?
Yeah, because it's a medicine.
Okay.
So an approved medicine. So ketamine was approved in 1970 by the FDA. The same year all the other psychedelics got banned.
Right.
But ketamine was approved as a medicine first, and then, so it's not in the process of approval. It was an anesthetic, a pain medicine. It's on the World Health Organization list of essential medicines. It's one of the most widely used medicines in the world. So it's part of the healthcare infrastructure already. What's new is, or newer is using it for mental health instead of just anesthesia. It was 1973 was the first article published that you could use ketamine to treat mental health disorders. That was from Iran. But the problem is because it was off patent later on, when a lot of the more sort of modern evidence-based research was done, it was off patent, so no drug company could make any money on doing the trials that need to be done to get it approved for that indication. So it's always been what we call off-label, so totally legal to use, but nobody does it because you don't get paid for it.
Right.
And so that's been sort of the one primary reason why it took so long to sort of come into more regular use and standard practice. The other reason is all psychoactive drugs have some kind of stigma around them, whether it's using morphine or benzodiazepines or amphetamines for ADHD. They're all drugs that affect our state of consciousness can be used in medicine, and they can be used recreationally to change our state of consciousness. Right. And so they, because ketamine was medically, it was primarily used by anesthesiologists and emergency physicians. Not even a lot of doctors even knew that ketamine was a drug. They thought it was a drug of abuse. They thought it was a rave drug, or isn't that something they use in veterinary medicine? It's a horse tranquilizer. So there's just a lot of misconceptions, but it's always been a medicine that we use in a clinical setting. And that's why it's way ahead of MDMA and psilocybin, LSD, and others. And that's also why it should be used as a mechanism to build the infrastructure that you need for doing psychedelic-assisted psychotherapy or implementing any kind of psychedelic treatments in a healthcare system, whether it's private or public or anywhere in the world, because we have a medicine that's approved, that's legal, that has 50 years of safety data. We give it to kids, we give it to old people, and so you can build the infrastructure that all the contextual, practical training, resource components of psychedelic use in medicine have to be in place for ketamine. So if you build that, then when the other drugs are approved, you just implement that into your ketamine unit or your clinic. So there's, some differences that are important, but you can use the same infrastructure, whether you're doing MDMA or psilocybin or ketamine. So that is the model, the approach that we've taken in Norway, which I hope other countries will follow, because everybody's really excited about the potential for MDMA or psilocybin to be approved. It's great. Both have a lot of potential, and both probably will be approved relatively soon. But it's not going to be, you can't just because it gets approved, suddenly you have an infrastructure to do psychedelics in your country. You need to build that, and it takes years, and it takes, it took us a long time. Since I started the private clinic in 2018, that was a long time ago, to the point where we got today, where we're, building the infrastructure with ketamine units throughout the country.
How come you ended up doing this in Norway? You're from the US, right?
Yeah. I have a Norwegian wife. She's a filmmaker, and
Got it.
so we lived in the U.S. For a while. Moved to Norway in 2010, but I commuted back to the U.S. for 10 years. And
oh wow!
then, yeah,
hell of a commute.
yeah. Every 3 weeks.
Okay.
So I have to plant a lot of trees. I'm going to plant a forest when I retire someday.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
What's something you're most excited about in your current work or current research?
Yeah, there's so much exciting things happening. One is just this national approval of ketamine, or national reimbursement of generic ketamine. I think that's just something that we really need to celebrate. It's bringing access to the treatment to everybody who can, so it's not just to people who can afford to do it in private clinics. I think that's just a huge thing. And so right now I'm working to help others in other Nordic countries and Europe to follow this model and implement this. And so that we're doing a lot of interesting research, both on ketamine. We're starting some psilocybin projects in Norway. Very interesting MDMA work at DPS Moss, where we recently did the first pilot study using MDMA for depression. So we're looking forward to following up on that and doing larger studies for that indication. And with ketamine, right now we're doing a research project on a case series on ketamine for eating disorders. And it appears to be, from the work that has been done so far and our clinical treatment so far, looking at the data that we have, it's really promising. So it looks like about 70% of the patients have significant improvement in their eating disorder, in their depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, quality of life, increased cognitive flexibility. So really, really profound changes for a set of disorders that are really hard to treat, and we don't have any good treatments for. So that's really, really exciting. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing in the psychedelic landscape in research and clinical treatment is more and more we're understanding psychedelics in general as transdiagnostic tools to catalyze change in people who have rigid patterns that they're stuck in, and thinking about them in that way, not just MDMA for PTSD or psilocybin for depression or ketamine for depression. They're really just, they appear to be, based on our experience over many, many, many years and then evolving research, they really appear to be transdiagnostic tools. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's one of the interesting things and one of the important things to explain to people why that is, because it can be so easy to perceive this as a panacea when you read these articles that, all right, it helps with depression, it helps with PTSD, it helps with eating disorders. It's easy to build up for people who are not delved into the topic. They might see it as, all right, people are trying to make it out to be a miracle drug. But explaining why these conditions are all connected in some way.
Exactly. And it is completely reasonable to, when you hear, oh, here's a drug that's good for completely different disorders. It's good for addiction. It's good for depression. It's good for anxiety. It sounds like complete bullshit because most tools are much more specific.
Exactly.
But when you look at both the neurobiologic mechanisms and the psychological mechanisms that are involved, it makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, while there are neurobiologic and significant differences between let's say major depression and alcohol addiction, fundamentally, if you take all these different disorders, what do they have in common? It's you're stuck in a negative pattern of thinking, feeling, or behavior.
Right.
You're stuck in this negative pattern. And all these mechanisms that, we described with neuroplasticity, that's just giving you more opportunities to take other pathways to get out of the patterns that you're stuck in, decreasing rigidity, increasing cognitive flexibility, and then many of the effects that, for example, say with eating disorders, the antidepressant effects of say the anorexia is your main thing. It's not severe depression or severe anxiety, but when you have severe anorexia, you also have depressive symptoms and anxiety, and the antidepressant and the anxiolytic effects of the ketamine help improve the depression and the anxiety, which allows you to engage in thinking a little differently and to engage with maybe your therapist, and that then improves your eating disorder.
Right.
So it all kind of fits together quite well, and it makes a lot of sense the more we understand it.
Yeah, for sure. It's almost as if all of these labels of all of the different conditions kind of work against this development, because, as you say, they're all connected, but to the layman, they sound so different.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's a diagnosis. You've got this type of depression, or absolutely, and we are not diagnoses. We are exactly. a whole integrated state of our mind and our body are completely one thing. We think about them separately, but and research on the DSM diagnoses, that's it's pretty well understood that that's an inadequate way to describe the human condition.
For those who don't know, DSM is
the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It's the American Psychiatric Association comes up with a big book of what the approved diagnoses are and what the criteria are. And the thing is, and that's been studied, and it's completely overlapping, and it also changes over time. We're not photographs, we're videos, as we are constantly changing organisms that are both internally and connected to our relations and our society and the environment, and it's not a closed system. So the current kind of the modern scientific understanding of mental health disorders is what we call a biopsychosocial model, where it's the state we are in is a reflection of our genetics and our current biology and physiology and what we're eating and what we're doing and who we're talking to and the job that we have and the society we live in.
Right.
So it's a much more complex than we often make it out to be with just putting a label so that we can give you a particular drug.
It's so much easier to say, I have condition A, I need pill B, and I will be good.
Yeah,
It's much easier sell.
Yeah, and that's the kind of how we've been doing things for a while, and it's a much easier sell for pharmaceutical companies that way as well. I mean, many of the diagnoses we have were pushed by pharmaceutical incentives.
Yeah,
and so that's unfortunate.
Yeah, but I'm very glad that you are doing work to change that, as well as so many other people here at the conference. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction for health as a society. Where can people find and follow your work?
So I have a private clinic called Axon Klinikken, AXON, in Oslo and Trondheim in Norway. And I'm also the medical advisor to the public system. We have a research group called the Center for Innovative Research in Mental Health Disorders. It's called Psykforsk in Norwegian, Psykforsk. And we have so that's where we're doing the MDMA research currently and some ketamine studies. And we also have a national network in Norway called NORAD, the Norwegian network for rapidly acting antidepressants. Mm-hmm. That is a label for many of the psychedelics that have rapid acting potential, like ketamine and psilocybin. And that network is a group of people from representing all the different health regions in Norway, and we're working on various research projects there as well.
All right. A lot of exciting stuff going on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lowan Stewart.
Thank you.
And thank you to everyone tuning in. My name is Yoshi from the Borealis Psychedelic Science Summit in Stockholm. Catch you next time.